Okay, so for homework number 2, we're going to talk about two-step equations and inverse operations. Now, we talked about inverse operations a little bit when we talked about rational coefficients. Because when we talked about rational coefficients, what? We talked about using one step really in an equation, but you still have to use the inverse operation. So, let's just start off with two-step equation. Now, a two-step equation, what do you think that means? You're going to do 2 steps, right? So two-step equations include 2 operations. So 2 steps equals 2 operations. Okay? So 2 steps are 2 operations. So the goal in solving a two-step equation, just like solving any other equation, is you want to get what? The variable alone. You want to get the variable by itself. So always remember, we want the variable alone. A real lonely guy, wants to be all by himself, doesn't like friends. You know how they are sometimes, those variables. What's a variable? A symbol that represents an unknown number, right? So we want to get that unknown number, or the variable, by itself in order to determine what the variable number is, right? Make the unknown known. Now, in order to do that, we have to remember that we use inverse operations. Now, in a two-step equation, you're going to use more than one inverse operation. You're going to use how many? You're going to use 2, right? Okay? So, let's talk about operations. So, all operations include addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. These are some operations for you, okay? Addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Those are all operations. Now, do we have an order? Yeah, of course. Order of operations say that division and multiplication come before addition and subtraction, right? Okay, now, let's go ahead and just go ahead and talk about what inverse means. Now, when you have a two-step equation, you have to undo operations by doing them in reverse order. That's an inverse operation because you're doing it in reverse. Now think about it. They sound pretty similar, right? So inverse is like reverse. Okay? So inverse is like the reverse, undoing, right? It's called an inverse operation. Now, example, let's talk about this. Now, if I have 10 minus 3, we have 7, right? 10 minus 3 equals 7. Now, what if I do the opposite? What if I add 3 to 7? I did the opposite of subtracting 3 from 10. I added 3 to 7. Okay? What do I get? I get 10. So, that means, this might look a little tricky to you, but if I have A minus B equals C, C plus B equals A. So, A minus B, 10 minus 3 equals C, right? That means that C plus B equals A. We're doing a reverse operation, okay? So, let's talk about this. When we're doing inverse operations, we're doing the inverse or the opposite, right? We're doing the reverse. Now, on the left side of this, we subtracted 10, right? That's the inverse of addition. So, addition and subtraction are inverse operations. So what do we think about multiplication and division? They are also inverse operations, okay? So, to undo addition, we subtract. To undo subtraction, we add. To undo division, we multiply. To undo multiplication, we divide. Got it? Got it. If you want to write that down, pause and write it down. Okay, but for right now, we're going to go ahead and solve a two-step equation. Show you how to use some inverse operations, okay? We're going to go ahead and erase this. Okay, now let's talk about these inverse operations in a two-step equation. I have, in the problem that I gave you, 17 equals 5y minus 3, okay? Now, step one, and I want you to do this all the time because I don't want you to start getting confused. I want you to always think about things in chunks. It's easier to think of things in chunks than as one big whole, right? You look at this and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to solve this? There's so much going on. I've got a 5y. What's y? I've got a minus 3. I've got a 17. How is this supposed to be equal? Relax. You're going to be fine. Think of things in chunks. Think of things in steps. Break it down, okay? So, step one, what I want you to do is draw a circle around your coefficient. You know what your coefficient is, right? Your coefficient is 5. Now I want you to draw a line under your variable. What's your variable? Y. So what are we solving for? Y, right? Y is my variable. It means my unknown number. Y is unknown. Right? Y is unknown. Trying to solve for Y. So, my next step, I'm going to draw a little square around the negative and the 3. Now, why do I want you to draw it around the negative and the 3? The minus 3? Because I don't want you to forget about the negative. Don't forget about the negative. Just imagine that this negative is attached to that 3, okay? Okay. Now, first things first. I've got a negative 3 over here. I got a 17 over here, right? Well, I want to get y by itself, right? I always want to get my variable alone. It's alone and unknown. It sounds very sad, huh? Well, anyway. So, what am I going to do? What is the inverse of subtracting 3? What is the opposite of subtracting 3? We just went over this, right? The opposite of subtracting 3 is adding 3. So, I'm going to add 3 to this side of the equation. Now, we talked about this yesterday. Anything that you do to one side of the equation, you have to do to what? The other side of the equation. So I added 3 to this side of the equation. Now I'm going to go over to the other side of the equation. And I'm going to add 3 to 17. Okay? Now, look. I'm going to come back over to this side of the equation. Negative 3 plus positive 3 is what? 0, right? Negatives cancel. When I have positive 3, I draw a number line out. Here's my 0. This is 1, this is 2, this is negative 1, this is negative 2, this is negative 3. If I'm at negative 3 and I add 3, 1, 2, 3, where do I end up? I end up at 0. My negative 3 is canceled out by my positive 3. Cancel it out. Done. Done with it. So I just have 5y left over, right? Y coefficient 5. Now, 17 plus 3. Come back over here. 17 plus 3 is what? 17 plus 3 is 20. Perfect. But I still have what? I still have got what? I still have 5y, right? Still got 5y. Is my y all by itself yet? No, it's still got a 5 in front of it, right? You can do this. You can do this. You just did it yesterday. One-step equation. I'm going to rewrite it because that's always my first step, right? 5y equals 20. Now, 5y. 5y means I'm multiplying y times 5. Okay? That 5 in front of that y, multiplying 5 times y, equaling 20. Now, if I want to get y by itself, I have to do an inverse operation, right? So, what's the inverse operation of multiplication? Division, right? So, to get the y by itself, I need to divide by 5. Now, whatever I do to this side, I have to do to this side, right? So, I'm going to divide by 5. Now, this looks like a fraction, right? Guess what? Fractions are just division. So, I have my 5y. 5 divided by 5 is what? 1. Cancels it out. Y is by itself, all on its own. 20 divided by 5. 5 times what is 20? 5 times 4 is 20. So, y equals 4. Beautiful. Y equals 4. Am I done yet? No way, I'm not done. Have I checked my work? No, so I'm not done. So let's check for y. How do I check for y? It was unknown. Well, I know it now. Y equals 4. So I'm just going to plug in 4 for y. So I'll do that over here. I have 17 equals 5y, or 5 times y, or 5 times 4 minus 3. Now, I've got a couple of things going on here. What step do I take first? Do I multiply first or do I subtract first? I multiply first because of order of operations. Multiplication and division become before subtraction and addition. Okay? So I multiply this 5 times this 4. What do I get? 17 equals 20 minus 3. Now, what's 20 minus 3? You can use a calculator. You get 17. Does 17 equal 17? Absolutely it does. Are these the same number? Absolutely they are. Is this equation balanced? Absolutely it is. Okay. Now, I want you to go back and look at these step-by-step directions. It says the first step was draw in the circle around your coefficient and underline your variable. We did that. Did we chunk up our -3? Of course we did. We drew our square. Our next step was to look at it and say, okay, what do we got to do here? We got to use an inverse operation to get the y on one side. So I got to subtract the 3. Now pause. We talked about this, so I'm not going to answer it. Why did you subtract the 3 from both sides? Pause this, answer your question. Okay, step 3. You still need to get your variable by yourself. So what are you going to do? Your second inverse operation, because this is a 2-step equation. So what did we do? We divided by 5, right? Perfect. Why did we do it on both sides? Pause, reflect, answer your question. Step 4, is my variable alone now? Absolutely it is. Y equals 4. I got my answer. Am I done? No. My 5th step is to check my work and see if my equation balances. What's a balanced equation? A balanced equation is equal on both sides. The same number is on both sides of the equal sign. Is 17 on the same as 17? Absolutely it is. My equation is balanced.